The crowd fell silent and then erupted. Michael Jordan had just delivered words so powerful, so unexpected, that Caitlin Clark herself was left frozen in her seat. This wasn't just a speech, it was a moment no one saw coming, and it ended with the entire arena on its feet. Michael Jordan doesn't just hand out praise. Over the decades, countless athletes have dreamed of earning even a nod of respect from him, and most never do. That's what makes what happened with Caitlin Clark so extraordinary. Jordan is a man whose name is carved into the very foundation of basketball history. 6 championships, 5 MVPs, Olympic gold, and a legacy so dominant that the game still measures greatness by his standard. He's not easily impressed. Caitlin Clark, on the other hand, is still writing the first chapters of her story, but what a story it's been. From shattering NCAA scoring records to transforming the WNBA's viewership overnight, she's not just another rookie. She's a generational talent whose style blends deadly accuracy with ice-cold confidence. Every time she steps on the court, she carries the weight of expectations not just from her team, but from millions of fans who see her as the future of the game. And yet, despite her meteoric rise, she's still just a few years into her professional career. She's still chasing the legends, still carving her place in a sport where respect has to be earned the hard way. That's why the idea of Michael Jordan, the ultimate benchmark for greatness, recognizing her in such a public, powerful way is so electrifying. It's not just an athlete meeting another athlete. It's the embodiment of the sport's past colliding with its future in a single, unforgettable moment. For Jordan, this wasn't just about a young player hitting big shots. This was about seeing in Caitlin something rare, that intangible fire that can't be taught, the kind he himself carried when he was rewriting history. And for Caitlin, hearing it directly from him wasn't just a compliment. It was validation from the one man whose approval means more than any trophy or endorsement deal. But as the crowd would soon find out, this wasn't going to be just a polite handshake and a few kind words. What Jordan was about to say next would stop everyone in their tracks. It started without warning. Jordan wasn't scheduled to speak. There was no flashy introduction, no teleprompter waiting for him at center court. 1 second, he was just another face in the crowd, albeit the most famous one there, and the next, he was standing, motioning for the microphone. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Cameras snapped into focus. The hum of the arena turned into a tense silence, as fans realized they were about to witness something unscripted and maybe historic. Caitlin Clark's eyes locked on him. She's faced roaring crowds, championship pressure, even the most hostile away arenas, but this was different. This was Michael Jordan not watching from a luxury box, not sitting quietly in the shadows, but preparing to speak directly to her in front of thousands. You could see her lean back in her chair, as if bracing for whatever was coming. Jordan gripped the mic like he'd done 1,000 times before, but this wasn't a press conference or a halftime ceremony. His voice carried that deep, steady authority that could silence a room without raising the volume. And yet, in those first few seconds, he didn't talk about himself. He didn't list his own accolades. Instead, he fixed his eyes on Caitlin and began describing a player not by name, but by spirit. A player who doesn't just play the game, but changes it. Who doesn't wait for respect, but forces the world to give it. People in the crowd glanced at each other, realizing who he was talking about before he even said her name. And then, almost as if he could feel the suspense tightening, Jordan turned slightly, looked her dead in the eyes, and said it, Caitlin Clark. The arena erupted cheers, whistles, camera flashes everywhere, but Jordan didn't break. He raised his hand, signaling for quiet because he wasn't finished. What he was about to say next would make even the most hardened sports veterans feel a lump in their throat. When the arena finally quieted, Jordan's tone shifted. He wasn't just speaking as the greatest basketball player of all time. He was speaking as someone who had lived the grind, who had felt the weight of expectation, who had fought to be more than just a name on a roster. His voice was calm but heavy with meaning. Talent, he began, can win you games. But fire? Fire can change the game forever. He went on, painting a picture of Caitlin's journey without reading from a note, without looking at a screen. He spoke about the way she played fearlessly against the toughest competition, how she carried herself with a mix of confidence and composure beyond her years. He compared her determination to the relentless drive he felt in his own prime, that obsession to win, that refusal to let anyone write your story for you. The crowd was locked in. Even the players who had been chatting on the sidelines were now leaning forward, listening. Greatness, Jordan continued, isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about letting your game do the talking. And Caitlin, your game speaks volumes. The air in the arena felt thick with electricity. You could feel the pride radiating off the fans, off her teammates, and even off Caitlin herself, though she kept her hands folded, her eyes never left him. And then Jordan delivered the line that would have every sports network replaying this moment for days. "You remind me," he said, "of the reason I fell in love with this game. And I'll tell you right now, if you keep going the way you are, you're going to inspire the next generation the same way we did." That was it. That was the spark. The crowd didn't just clap, they roared. The sound bounced off the rafters, people stood without even thinking, and in that instant, the applause wasn't just for Caitlin Clark, it was for the connection between basketball's past and its future, embodied in one surreal exchange. The sound was deafening. It wasn't the kind of applause you hear after a good play or a halftime performance. This was something deeper, something that came from the gut. Entire sections of the arena were on their feet, clapping until their hands stung. Some fans were waving their arms in the air, others were whistling at the top of their lungs, and a few could be seen wiping their eyes. The camera panned across the crowd and captured something rare. Genuine emotion, the kind you can't fake. Caitlin sat frozen for a moment, almost as if her brain needed a second to catch up with what had just happened. This wasn't a press release, this wasn't a tweet. This was Michael Jordan, the man she'd grown up watching on highlight reels, looking her in the eye and telling her she had the same fire that built his empire. Slowly, she stood, and when she did, the roar somehow got even louder. Her teammates surrounded her, patting her on the back, grinning like they'd just won a championship. Jordan, for his part, didn't soak in the applause. He stepped back slightly, giving Caitlin the spotlight. He clapped for her too, nodding with the kind of approval that says, "You've earned this." And in that moment, it didn't matter that this wasn't a playoff game or a trophy ceremony. This was bigger than that. It was a public passing of the torch, an unspoken acknowledgement that Caitlin Clark wasn't just the face of her team, she was becoming the face of the sport itself. The ovation lasted longer than anyone expected. It swelled and swelled until the entire arena was vibrating with noise. Fans held their phones high, desperate to capture every second. Clips would flood social media within minutes, each one captioned with variations of the same thought. This is history. And even though not a single point had been scored, this was the kind of moment that would be remembered long after the final buzzer. It didn't take hours, it took minutes. By the time Jordan stepped off the court, the moment was already exploding online. Clips of his speech were flooding social media feeds faster than anyone could refresh. The raw cellophane footage, shaky but electric, was somehow even more powerful than the professional camera angles. You could hear the crowd's roar, see Caitlin's stunned expression, and watch Jordan deliver those now iconic words without any editing. On X, hashtags like #Jordan and Clark, #passing the torch, and #GoToGoat were trending before the game even resumed. TikTok edits set to emotional music were racking up millions of views in hours. Sports pundits on television scrambled to replay the clip, cutting their own segments short just to cover it. ESPN dedicated a full block to the moment, calling it one of the most unexpected and touching gestures in modern basketball. And it wasn't just sports fans tuning in. Celebrities, former athletes, even rival WNBA players were posting their reactions. Some called it the ultimate blessing, others said it was the kind of validation you can't buy. The speculation began immediately. Was this the start of a deeper mentorship between Jordan and Clark? Would we see them working together in some capacity? Or was this simply a one-off moment of genuine respect? One thing was clear. Caitlin Clark's name was now tethered to Michael Jordan's in a way that no marketing campaign could have orchestrated. Overnight, she wasn't just the WNBA's breakout star, she was the young player personally endorsed by the GOAT. And as the buzz built, so did the curiosity. Because behind the public praise, there were whispers of a private conversation that might have been even more powerful than the one the world had just seen. When the cameras cut away and the crowd finally began to settle, Jordan didn't just disappear into the tunnel. He made his way toward Caitlin, moving with that same quiet confidence that had just commanded the entire arena. The two met just off to the side of the court, where the microphones couldn't pick up their words. And that's when the real curiosity began. From a distance, you could see Jordan leaning in, speaking low, his hand resting briefly on her shoulder. Caitlin listened intently, nodding slowly, her expression somewhere between awe and deep concentration. No one nearby dared to interrupt, even the security guards gave them space. Whatever he was saying, it wasn't small talk. This looked like advice, the kind of advice only someone who's climbed to the absolute peak could give. Reports later claimed that Jordan told her to never let the pressure dim her love for the game, to block out the noise, the critics, the distractions, the politics, and to remember why she started. Some said he hinted that the road ahead would be tougher than anything she'd faced so far, but that she had the mindset to handle it. Others speculated he may have offered her an open invitation to train with him privately, something that, if true, would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. None of this has been confirmed, of course. Jordan's camp stayed silent, and Caitlin didn't reveal much when reporters asked her about it later. All she said with a faint smile was, "That's between me and Mike." And just like that, the mystery only deepened. Fans couldn't stop wondering what exactly the greatest player in history had whispered to the brightest star in the game's future. And as speculation swirled, one thing became crystal clear. Whatever was said in that private moment had left a mark on Caitlin Clark that would last her entire career. In the weeks that followed, it was clear something had shifted in Caitlin Clark. Her game, already sharp, seemed even more focused. She played with an extra layer of confidence, as if Jordan's words had lit a fuse inside her. In interviews, she spoke with the same poise, but her answers carried a subtle edge, a quiet assurance that she was exactly where she belonged. It wasn't arrogance. It was conviction. Every time she stepped on the court, the media couldn't help but bring up the Jordan speech. Opposing teams knew they weren't just playing against Caitlin Clark, the rookie. They were playing against Caitlin Clark, the player personally recognized by Michael Jordan. And that aura had its effect. Defenders hesitated. Fans packed arenas in numbers the league hadn't seen in years. Every shot, every highlight felt bigger because the world was now watching her through a different lens. Jordan, for his part, didn't fuel the hype publicly. He didn't post on social media or give follow-up interviews. But here and there, a small sign would surface a sideline appearance at one of her games, a discreet message passed along through mutual friends. It was as if he'd handed her the torch in public, and now, from the shadows, was watching to see what she would do with it. In sports, there are games you remember, and then there are moments that transcend the scoreboard entirely. Michael Jordan's spontaneous, heartfelt speech to Caitlin Clark wasn't just a compliment. It was a symbolic coronation, an unplanned, raw, and unforgettable exchange between basketball's greatest icon and its brightest rising star. It was the past telling the future, "You're ready." It was a legend, putting his seal of approval on a player who's still only at the dawn of her career. And for Caitlin Clark, it was the kind of moment that athletes dream about, not just because of who said it, but because of what it meant. One day, years from now, Caitlin might have her own moment where she turns to a younger player, offers a few quiet words, and passes along the same spark that Jordan gave her. And when that happens, fans will remember the night in 2025 when the GOAT himself stood up, spoke out, and reminded the world that greatness recognizes greatness no matter the era.